Hello. I wanted to make a video talking about a very specific topic called what to expect at the 6-month mark. Now, what do I mean by the 6-month mark? I mean what to expect when you've come in for a coaching call and you're doing things correctly. The 6-month mark won't be applicable to you if you have been seeing someone for 8 years and they're giving you reassurance all day, which is unfortunately the common ground for most coaches and therapists, since it's very difficult to understand OCD. As I always say, I can name about 5 people on this planet that really understand OCD, and all 5 of them have had it. Doesn't mean people can't get the basics down, but the interworkings are hard to get when the rumination cycle feels so real, which is only one piece of it. Before I go any further, look for the What's Up link down below. Directly message Phil. We can get you in as soon as possible, as usual. If that doesn't work, remember phil@ocdrecovery.com, and we will message you back as quickly as possible. So, like I said, we try to get people in as quick as we can. Our schedules are quite full, but we do what we can to get people in. Okay, so this video is particular for individuals who have been putting the correct amount of work in, okay? So they've been coming in to seeing someone who's coming from the perspective of unconditional acceptance. So if the primary goal isn't unconditional acceptance, then this video is not for you, because you're not actually doing what's correct to get underneath your fears. So again, this is for individuals who are usually coming into OCD recovery. Sorry, I might be a little windy. They're coming into OCD recovery, or anyone else who's doing belief work, which is unfortunately quite rare, and they realize that the main thing driving their OCD is their beliefs. They've read all the books on the reading list in a 6-month time period, or they've read most of the books. They spend time disputing their beliefs on paper. They're really working on their compulsive behaviors and avoidance behaviors, and that's really who this video is for. Okay, so what to expect at the 6-month mark. Let's just use the random example that you started this on January 1st of whatever year. 6 months in, reality, not much has changed. Besides your structure in your life, hopefully. And your frustration tolerance has risen. That is really difficult for people to hear, but it's actually very, very important for them to hear that. Most people, at OCD Recovery, who either make content or have or coaches, me, Momin, Phil, Rob, etc. People who are very active moderators, Sam Williams, many videos from Jade, etc. Other people in the Real Talks. About a year or two, I'm not going to say even on average, because it's not the case. Some people, it takes years for them to really kind of kick things into gear. So that is what to expect from most people. Again, not a rough guideline, but usually what we see. 6-month mark, you're still having symptoms pretty much every single day to some degree. You are experiencing new themes that are cropping up, OCD latching in different types of fear ways. So definitely expect that. There are still subtle compulsive and avoidance behaviors you're still engaging in, which you still either don't want to admit because you think they're so subtle, or you are too scared to let them go because you've been doing them for 20 years and you don't know who you are without them, because those behaviors are attached to your identity. So that's really what to expect at the 6-month mark. From that opening perspective, what else is there to expect? Okay, a lot of continual victimhood. Oh, I don't get it. I put the work in. Why is this happening to me? How could I be having a relapse? It's a lot of cockiness still for many people, and a lack of humility. It took me a long time to develop that. Good few years to really realize, hey man, there's no universal principle that states that I must never have a relapse ever again or something like that. And I think that's something that really kind of held me back. Because when you have a relapse at 6 months, people don't like hearing that. Even individuals who are even at like the 1-year mark, when we, try to slow things down and we say to them, hey, look, you're still in the beginning. They're like, the beginning? I've been working on this for 1 year. If you're watching it in that regard, you're actually doing yourself a major disservice. So what you actually want to try and do is not look at it through those lenses, which is easy to do. I've been working on this for a year, or, oh crap. God only knows how the sound of this video is going to come out because it's windy. I've been working on this for a year. Why am I not better? This isn't fair. There is no such thing as fairness. Fairness doesn't exist. We would prefer for fairness to exist, but if fairness existed, then life would be fair. On the universal principle, it's very easy to break these beliefs down once you accept the realities of life, which is extremely brutal and filled with death and violence, and many great moments as well. But it's very important to highlight the bad. And the reason why is because, as Cicero said in a book I just read by him, all pain and suffering comes from an expectation on life and it not going the way you wanted it to. It doesn't mean you can't be upset, but the chronic extreme emotions of depression, anger, resentment, and rage are coming from expectations on how life should be, how people should act, how you should behave. That is the simplicity of unconditional acceptance, which came from Stoicism and is the foundation. So, to remember that. A lot of victimhood. This shouldn't be happening to me. I'm the worst thing ever. This shouldn't be happening to me. I don't deserve this. I know more than this. I know better. I've put work in. I am putting more work in. I'm putting more work in than other people. Et cetera, et cetera. A lot of conditional life acceptance, and it's fucking cold. I don't even know where this came from. And that's what held me back. If I was to have a relapse now, there's none of that goes on. There's none of the, I've been working. I don't even think about that. I know which day I put my video games away, which many people have heard me say May 30th, on May 1st of 2020, but that's not a concept I even use or even rely on. So if you're doing that, that's one thing you want to stop, is that time frame. Again, it's very easy to do, and most people are doing it. So that's got to go. Another thing at the 6-month mark, your chances of unconditional acceptance as a primary philosophy are basically zero, as you're holding that, because innately, biologically, from your herd mentality, we think in very conditional manners. I always think about this more than likely from a protective mechanism where people are afraid of being alone or rejected. So it makes a lot of sense why people think in very conditional manners and they want to feel like they're a part of something. People love being a part of a community. Take CrossFit for an example. It's a silly example, but why is CrossFit so big? Is people like being a part of the community. They like the camaraderie and the feeling that brings. Humans benefit greatly from connection, but it's actually not a necessity to life. If it was a necessity to life, then every single person that isolated themselves would be depressed. It's not the case. Some people really like living off the grid. Shit, I live in Colorado. You know how many ski bumps there are that live in their vans and just ski all day? Sure, they're around people. They're not connecting with them. They're staying in their own minds. So it's just not as simple as that. So at the 6-month mark, another thing too, is it's usually time, if you've been doing it properly and reading the books, to potentially read the first book on the reading list again. So you're reading the Stubbornly Refused book again, and you're taking some time to break down some more beliefs. Usually, I recommend at that 6 to 12 month period, again, this is just rough guidelines, no set in stone. This will look different from person to person. I have to be very good at analyzing where the individual is, how their beliefs are, what work they're putting in, etc. But this usually comes to a time period where the individual usually no longer doesn't need to use pen and paper ever again. Not everyone, most people who have done this correctly. What do I mean by that? You have to become comfortable with taking the risk that you could be disputing incorrectly or compulsively, and then redirecting your attention elsewhere. And not redirecting in the sense of like forceful redirection, but getting back to life and maybe dropping disputing in your mind for a couple days. That's a very important thing. OCD sufferers are deathly attracted to the paper of disputing because it's a comfy. Sitting down and doing your beliefs on paper is comfy. There's great benefits to it, usually necessary for most people. But there comes a time and place where it actually has to come down and the individual has to become more comfortable with disputing in their head. I'll give you an example. I always use simple ones so people can wrap their head around it. Let's say you're in a car and the taxi driver is being mean to you or not really listening to you. You're not going to say, wait a second, let me pull out my notepad and go through my activating event, etc. No, you could chip away at it in your mind, and you have to take the risk that you could be doing that compulsively. And you have to get you comfortable with not needing a game plan. This is something I just got off a call with an individual who'll probably watch this and laugh, because I told him I'm making this video because of his recommendation. And I was saying, at the end of the call, he was like, let's do a summary. And I said, no summary. No summary. And he's like, oh, yeah. And I did that too. He's going to laugh when he sees this. And it's such a subtle thing to do because you expect that, right? You expect that on the calls. It's a service. But many of the parts of the service are actually things that you don't want to hear, because it's not about being your friend. And we were friendly with many people, but I can't just be your friend and tell you what you want to hear, which is what most coaches and therapists do. I have to have targeted tough love. Keyword targeted tough love. Too much tough love and not enough compassion and empathy becomes just being an asshole. I'm acting like an asshole, not in totality being an asshole. But so that is an important thing to cover. What else to expect at 6 months? I think I covered everything, but the main takeaway from this video is you're really not going to be feeling that much better. Even when you've read all the books, even you've done this, you'll be having perspective shifts, but many people are still stuck. Every once in a while, I get people in that 3 to 6 month mark where they start to feel some good relief, and they're like, oh, I'm feeling better here and I'm feeling better there. And then what tends to happen is they tend to have a massive relapse, and they get really angry, and they're like, or really depressed. And the emotional disturbance floods back in like a gate in that broken down, and the waters are flooding into the river. So that's a very, very important thing to remember. And that's just how this whole entire process goes. And you're still not willing to have a relapse because you think that your recovery efforts owe you something. That's the main thing. You think that your recovery efforts owe you something, where you think, I put the work in, and because I put the work in, I deserve to feel better. And that universal deservingness belief is the number one thing to hold you back. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember, these are key parts. Many things I forgot, and then we'll go from there and see how you guys are doing in the comment sections below. Always comment. I love going through that. And remember, phil@ocdrecovery.com, and look for the What's Up link down below. And the webinars are every Tuesday, and hope to hear from you soon.